Pesticides. Is it the best way? In this video we are going to explore what pesticides are, why they are used, their classification, how they work, and their impact on food, health, and the environment. But let's start with this. What are pesticides? Pesticides are chemical substances used in agriculture to protect crops from pests, diseases, and weeds. Why are pesticides used? Pests can cause significant damage to crops, leading to yield losses and economic adversity for farmers. Pesticides help manage these threats and ensure food production demand. The classification of pesticides is: insecticides, control insects; fungicides, combat fungi and fungal diseases; herbicides, eliminate weeds. How do pesticides work? Pesticides work through various mechanisms depending on their type. Insecticides target the nervous system of insects, causing paralysis. Fungicides inhibit fungal growth and reproduction, while herbicides interfere with plant processes essential for growth, ultimately killing weeds. Globally, an estimate of over 5.6 billion lb of pesticides are used every day. Now that we understand how pesticides work, let's explore into their impact on food. There has been rising attention to the high incidence of pesticide contaminants in food products. Pesticide residues can persist on food. Let's explore some studies. In Poland, the presence of pesticide residues in apples was investigated, where in 66.5% of the samples, 34 pesticides were detected. In another study in China, they evaluated pesticides in fruits and vegetables, and they found the presence of toxic pesticides in them. In Mexico, studies have shown pesticide presence in more than 50% of the samples analyzed. However, in most of the cases, the detected levels were not high enough to cause harm, even in children. Still, because there are several issues with the safety limits regulatory organizations have established, it's unclear how the amount of pesticide found on food could impact long-term health. What can I do to reduce the level of pesticides in my food? An analysis found that washing with tap water or using commercial clean products reduces pesticide levels by 60 to 70%. The levels of pesticides can be reduced by cooking or processing foods. It is important to mention that food safety agencies regularly monitor pesticide residues in food to ensure they comply with safety standards.
How do pesticides affect our health? Pesticides present serious health risks from exposure. However, the activities that cause most concern are mixing and application of pesticides in the field, consumption of food and water contaminated with pesticides. These activities have led to a number of accidental poisonings, and even the routine use of pesticides that can pose health risks to people, both in the short and long term. In addition, it is estimated that about 25 million agricultural workers worldwide experience unintentional pesticide poisonings each year. The main routes by which they enter the human body are dermal, more common in people who work with the application of it with the direct contact, oral resulting from ingestion of the pesticide through contaminated food or water, ocular at the moment of application, and respiratory due to the presence of volatile components that can cause damage to the nose, throat, and lung tissues. What is the impact of the use of pesticides on our health? Studies indicate that the use of pesticides may be related to various diseases such as cancer, leukemia, Parkinson's, asthma, neuropsychological and cognitive disorders, etc. It also indicates that the impact on health will depend on exposure, concentration, job, and age group. There are several studies that relate pesticides to bladder, colon, breast, and lung cancer, among others. The literature reports that exposure to imazethapyr and imazapyr increases the risk of meningioma, bladder cancer, and colon cancer. Chlorpyrifos such as CPFs alter the antioxidant defense system, causing breast cancer. Polychlorinated biphenyl pesticides have a positive association with the risk of breast, thyroid, and ovarian cancer. Clinical and epidemiological studies associate pesticides with asthma due to irritation, inflammation, immunosuppression, or endocrine disruption. In addition, any exposure to pesticides is associated with atopic asthma. Other effects are due to early exposure to organophosphate pesticides that cause childhood asthma in those mothers who were exposed and prevalence of ocular and nasal problems. Exposure to pesticides and metabolites increase the risk of developing type 2 diabetes and its comorbidities. Epidemiological studies suggest that occupational exposure to pesticides may increase the risk of Parkinson's disease at a younger age relative to patients without a family history of the disease. The use of organophosphate pesticides increases the likelihood of the disease. Some studies report an association between organophosphate pesticide exposure and neuropsychological and cognitive effects. The functions that presented difficulties are executive, psychomotor speed, verbal, memory, attention, processing speed, visual spatial functioning, and coordination.
There is another important aspect to consider in the scope that the use of pesticides can generate, a very important aspect not only for us but also for future generations. The environment can be seriously contaminated. Water, soil and air can suffer high levels of contamination from the use of these products. Regarding water pollution, many pesticides can dissolve in water, which causes rivers and groundwater to be contaminated. This contamination affects to a greater extent the species that live and consume that water, and in some cases we can also consume that water contaminated with these pesticides in large or more commonly in low quantities. This exposure is called chronic exposure, and it can seriously affect people's health over time. In Europe, it has been estimated that at least 25% of water bodies have problems with contamination by pesticides. It is important to know that pesticides can kill pollinators, such as bees. These species play an important role in our world, and many of the crops, flowers and plant species depend on their role in nature. It is estimated that, if pollinators cease to exist, human beings would not be able to survive for a long time, and it is even said that the planet would be lifeless in 5 years. Imagine how important it is to preserve these species. Not only can they die from exposure to these pesticides, but if they survive, they can experience problems such as difficulty flying and navigating. However, there is a light on this path. There are always other ways of doing things. New products and technologies that can be used. Biotechnology may be a good way. In recent years, biotechnology has sought new products that can replace current pesticides, such as the use of fungi and bacteria to control some pests that can damage crops. These applied directly to crops or generating extracts, as well as obtaining compounds that can be used as pesticides. For example, the effectiveness of the metarhizium fungus has been proven to control the red spider, which attacks citrus trees, zucchini, melon, watermelon, among others. It has been determined that this fungus can control up to 85% of its population. These results, combined with other techniques such as planting other species around the crop that divert the attention of pests, genetic engineering techniques have even been used to increase the pest control potential of some organisms. For example, fungi have been genetically transformed by inserting genetic material from other species that produce more effective control compounds, such as scorpions. As we have seen, the use of pesticides can impact the world in different areas, such as health, the environment, and affect us while consuming food and water contaminated by these products. The search for new techniques to control crop pests that do not harm other species, such as bees, is urgent. Biotechnology and genetic engineering techniques have opened a new window of opportunity to reduce or eliminate the use of these products. The projects currently being developed related to this topic directly impact the fulfillment of sustainable development objectives, such as zero hunger, by promoting techniques to grow environmentally friendly food and producing food without contaminants. That of clean water and sanitation, by reducing the contamination rate of these products. That of responsible production and consumption, as well as that of the life of terrestrial ecosystems. We hope that this video has helped you understand the possible consequences of using pesticides and the opportunities there are to reduce their use.